All right, we'll move right on now to Denis Ginnivan. Now, Denis is a community person that's worked in northeast Victoria with the Voices of Indi. He was one of the founders of that group. Now, they're a group that are interested in participatory democracy, and that means they bring communities together to discuss these types of issues or any issue that the community is facing, and they give them a structure and a process about how to go about it so that whoever they're talking to in power or in their local community understands that it's a thought out position backed by the community and therefore has some credibility. So I'll hand over to Denis now and he'll take us through that process. Now, I realise the questions have been a bit short. I'm more than happy to stay here, and I'm sure Denis is as well, and answer as many questions as we can at the end of Denis's discussions, although I guess many people will move on because it is a long time sitting in front of a computer. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Denis and we'll see where we get to.
Thanks very much, Peter. Can I just check, Peter, what's the optimal amount of time? Because I can sort of curate it a bit to fit in with what parameters you've got.
Well, if you go for half an hour,
Yep.
And then we'll get into the questions and we'll see who's still around wanting answers.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks very much, Peter, and thanks to the Farmers for Climate Action for the opportunity to speak here today. I just also want to recognise some of the really important points that both Rob and Greg made around how, for Rob, how we are as people, what our needs are, and what our wiring's like, and how can we, what happens when there's a debonding, but also a regrouping and a sort of a sense of where to now. So I guess that's partly where I'm coming from in this presentation is what is it that communities, so individuals and communities, obviously it's got to be in a group to get sort of action, but what can an individual and a community do to refocus, regroup, to build a sense of future common purpose? And that's what I'm doing with my little business called Events That Matter, which is supporting rural communities to have stronger voices around issues, many of which may have been mentioned today. And I should say I'm really conscious that, you know, the difficulties that we face today more broadly have become a bit more sharp when you've got two big events, fire and pandemic, and the double whammy effect, which is happening for the South Coast, Bega Valley. But I should say, just by way of experience, and it's sort of relatable, and that is that in northeast Victoria, which is where I'm from, there's been major fires coming through this region too, and there's quite a bit of work going on in the communities that were bushfire affected. And I should also say that from a personal perspective, my farm was in a bushfire that totally got burnt, except for the house. So there's something that happened. I was quite lucky. I wasn't on the property at the time, but I'm really conscious of what I have a sense of what it is that people in this presentation and the audience here may have been through. I appreciate there's a lot of trauma and perspectives that may not be ready yet for, you know, sort of talking about what to do next. But with respect to that, I'll present it, but I'm conscious that it may not be where everyone's at. I want to, in effect, give you a bit of a case study example of the federal seat of Indi, which is in northeast Victoria, made to towns Wangaratta, Wodonga, Benalla in that region, and then all the valleys up to the hills from there. And I'm going to be speaking about how rural people and communities can connect with politics and have a stronger voice, how our representatives can be stronger in representing the people, because they need a strong community to be listening to do the job. So the focus is on improving the relationship between the community and the politician. And it's for them to do their job, and it's a two-way street. So I'll draw on my experiences in Northeast Victoria with this group, this community group, which was formed in 2012, Voices for Indi. And also, since that time, there's been 3 successful federal independent campaigns. So this region's had quite a move towards the concept of a community and a representative being more directly connected without a party structure around them. So really, in a way, the community technically, or sort of essentially, is the party, because there's not a formal party telling that politician how to be, or that parliamentarian how to vote, and how to determine policy positions based on a broader position of the party. So I'll draw on that experience, but also working with emerging community democracy groups in other parts of the country, and also on my experience with Totally Renewable Yackandandah. And I just would say it was interesting hearing Greg speak about fire, but one of the big things that's happening with regard to fire resilience with the country fire authorities actually starting to, and it's happening in this region. It started in this region actually, where CFA buildings are going to be more renewably sourced energy. It's that sort of becoming a one way in which emergency services and communities can start to protect themselves from reliance on grid power alone. Just very quickly, a couple of acknowledgements. I'm not a member of Voices for Indi committee now, so I don't speak on their behalf, but I've had a lot to do with the work that it's done, and I encourage you to go to their website, which has got a lot of information about how a community over time has influenced the way in which politics has emerged. Also, the Victorian Women's Trust develops some pretty innovative ways in which people can have positive and effective conversations, bringing people together. It's known as Kitchen Table Conversations, and there's a report on the Voices for Indi website that captures a lot of the model and content of what happened here. So briefly, the challenges that can face any community, and as I said, I'm speaking in a sense from a case study perspective, are many. One is, for example, to use the AFL, Australian rules football analogy, there's more members of the Richmond Football Club than there are in all the political parties combined, is what I understand. So what's happening over time is that there's more and more of the decisions are being made and being influenced by, from a party perspective, by a smaller and smaller number of people. It's been difficult, if you're not a member of a party, to find a way in which people can participate in the political process. And I should say I'm speaking broadly, federal, state and local. There's a sense of disengagement when certain groups of people or cohorts don't feel that there's any connection for them. And one of the really big worries that I have is the increasing rate of disengagement by young people and connection with politics. And politics was sort of becoming something like what gets done to me in my name, rather than what do I do to shape it. And that's really one of the things that's the essential message that I wanted to get across today, is what can one do? And it's all, this has been in the sort of context too of the sort of the game or the paralysis of polarized party politics on key issues. And obviously what we've been speaking today is one where there's been so much polarization without the community actually being listened to, I believe, around big issues like climate. So there's this thing called, what I used to do was I'd be shouting at the television, because of being disconnected myself and didn't really know how do you even participate in all this. You'd see something on the news, you'd be cranky, and I realized, well, that's not very helpful, is to be sitting at home throwing a metaphorical brick through the television and not doing anything about the issue. So that's really what has happened in this region. Is the big question is what can I do? What can I do to be on the front foot and feel positive about my community, the way in which we're being represented, the opportunities to get involved in some way, to bring other people along for the discussion. So in a way, the voting positions and the policy positions taken tend to reflect what it is that is being felt and expressed by local communities. And citizens, under a democracy, we all have a right and a responsibility to be part of it. It's our gift. It's something that's to be valued. It's something to be used in a positive way, to be feeling, well, you know, the other options aren't looking too flash. You know, if you're looking at other forms of government, then what we've got is a massive opportunity to participate in what it is that happens around us. And I know that sort of may sound idealistic, but at the same time, it is our opportunity. So very quickly, I'm just going to go through some key things. So I guess what happened in the region where I'm from is there's been a big shift. And I guess what I wanted to say at this point is that if you want to follow up any of these ideas or opportunities or thoughts around what I'm saying and what I will be saying, please direct them via Peter and back to me if it's to me. I'm more than happy to sort of follow it up, because I just wanted to get in that now early before too many people have to leave, Peter. So really, what does it take? What does it take for a community to become stronger in this? And I should say, this has got nothing about being anti-party. It is pro-community. And it picked up on some of the threads that Rob was saying before too, is that, you know, what it is that people feel emotionally strong about is things can get out of hand. But this isn't to blame anyone directly, but it's also to exhort and find the ways in which community can rise and become stronger, and it becomes, in effect, part of the political process the community does. So in our region here, the key things were there's a small group of people got started. They started asking questions. What can I do? What's the possibilities? Who do I know? Can we keep talking and having conversations to just get started? So essentially 10 people got together and started asking those questions of themselves. And over time, things emerged from there. And I mentioned that report, which is on the website. There's been lots of other things that groups like Voices for Indi have done, but that report's a pretty good example. It involves people who become concerned about key issues, but also want to know how the system works, how you are represented now, and how you could improve your way in which you could be represented on the issues that matter to you. Such a group may bring people from a variety of groups and views, some of which you may not, everyone's got a view that not everyone else is going to agree with. But if there's an acceptance and a respect and a courtesy about listening to people with different views, then larger groups of people can get together and form a common strategy. So that's really one of the bedrocks of the process of bringing people together, is that you've got to be prepared to understand, take on board, work as a broader community rather than have a sort of sense of personal commitment and passion about something. Such a group would be bring those people together. Voices for Indi did that. They actually became an incorporated body. So it wasn't the individuals who were expressing the voice. It was actually a collective position that then became what it is that was in the media and in the community, and sort of publicly speaking about the opportunities to engage in citizenship. They wanted to create a community, a voice of aware and engaged citizens, to see that your representatives' actions are aligning to your local community's expressed wishes. They've talked to the neighbours and friends about this, and we're opening to listening to others' opinions, as I said before, about a wide range of issues, not specifically only a single issue that is often what may drive someone. And as I said, it's not about being anti-party. It is about being pro-community. It's not about getting rid of somebody. but it's actually being a process that can actually assist current forms of government, or if it isn't working, to become the basis for subsequent further action, where a community might decide, well, if we don't like the politics that we've got, maybe we can get other sorts of politics. And I guess that's what's happened through Indi, is that there's been a much stronger relationship between the community and politics, a much more of an invitation for people to participate in that dynamic between the community and the politician. And the MPs, they need strong local groups to talk to, as I said earlier. They need, in order to improve their capacity to represent, they can't ignore the community, and particularly if that community is organised, respectful, productive, engaged, and representative of a broader group of people. So there's things that groups like that can do. They can invite guest speakers in, bring people together around particular topics, project invitation to people to become more involved themselves rather than just listening to speakers. And I think that's really one of the key things is to sort of have to imagine what the future could look like, and then have a sort of a sense of how could we get there if you wanted to do something like that. And for each community is very different. They need to consider their own factors that are in play in those communities. So where you live is going to be different to what happened in Indi, but I guess I just wanted to sort of put this possibility in front of you as part of the resilience building, strengthening of a rural community after some fairly serious and challenging times. I think how people can work together and express themselves as a collective across a larger region is so important, and maybe these ideas can help you think a bit about how you would like to react to it in your own community. So Peter, I might stop there. I'm conscious of the time. More than happy to take questions or to follow up after the meeting is finished. Well, as you go, Peter.
Thanks, Dennis. And before everybody leaves, we will have some more questions. And Wendy Cohen, our CEO at Farmers for Climate Action, is going to wrap up. I'll just ask one question because it might give you an opportunity to explain how to go about the answer to this question. And it is, my 2 cents worth, Bega and surrounds needs to find the things it has in common with Tumut, Tumbarumba, Gascoigne, Kerma, Ginnivan. Because it is a huge, where did it go? Because it is a huge and diverse seat with slightly competing points of interest. So have you got a comment on that, or how they might go about doing that, Dennis? I guess from my point of view, they go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, well, I think what unites people is often a common challenge. I wouldn't say common enemy, but a common challenge or a common sense of broad purpose. So, you know, there's always differences between parts of the region. I don't downplay the differences between the coastal and the higher plains, Monero plains sort of areas, for example, as having different interests. But I think in the bigger world, that's one electorate, for example, Eden Monero, it's one part of a much bigger picture. So how that broader picture gets represented in Canberra is what could well be the commonality. So I agree with you that there's individual differences between the towns, but I think it's important, for example, I remember in some of these kitchen table conversations we're having, it sort of became obvious that it's really important that what's important to other people is equally as important as what's important to myself. Like there is a bit of a give and take, you cut a bit of slack and actually see the world from other people's perspectives as well. So the conversations that would capture this reflects that sort of value of hearing out people who may be very different to you and understanding how the world looks to them. So as the discussions come forward, it captures one's awareness of someone else rather than I just want to get my issues put on the table. So there's a lot behind that, and the processes and the psychology of the sort of facilitated meetings that can help bring that out in people in a disciplined and respectful way. So I hope that answers it. Well, from my perspective, that's my best attempt to do that, but I do appreciate there's so many elements to it.
Right. Well, no, that's good, Dennis. We might just do one more question, then we'll go to Wendy, and then people can ask. We'll stay here and answer questions for as long as people want to ask them. But other people can move on to whatever they need. So the last question is, what do you do when it appears that some people want victory and the last word, even in completely minor things, which is kind of fundamental to organising these groups?
Well, one of the things is that one of the shaping aspects of that is that membership of groups like this and but discussion groups, but also a group that might decide they want to actually take on board, you know, a broader strategy. What happened with Indi is that we had a really strong commitment to a sign up of values. And there's this famous observation that just because you got values doesn't mean you're a pushover. You know, like the community group, by doing so, by everyone signing up to a process or signing up to membership, would be asked to sign up to the principles or the commitment to being respectful, transparent, listening to someone else, being open, working towards a positive outcome. So in effect, for a community group of that nature to get together, there's got to be some way to draw together people's commitment to the larger than it is to the individual. So I think if there's a person who's just wanting to have the final say on everything, it may not be many people following them, because it won't fit into like a broad commitment by a group to work together.
Thanks, Dennis, for that.